Restart and refuel this moon boy ship. My dreams may be futile, but this you say, well, my dreams may be futile, but Bitcoin bull keeps charging away. Oh, you see, my Bitcoin bull keeps charging away. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. A Bitcoin bull is all I got left. Sold my clothes, gold no less. Walls are circling, hollow hands. This man stronger than the average man. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. Bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm not the. Day the markets take another day.
You're listening to Anyobservation, the best NFT, crypto, and gaming podcast ever. With your host, Anders Bjork.
And now we're live, and we are here once again with Mike. Well, it feels like we sit down very frequently now. So how are you doing today?
That's okay, right?
I agree. I'm very.
I hope I'm always welcome to come here and talk to you. You're one of my favorite interviews. I think we have great chemistry, and I love to get your thoughts on things, and I love to talk to your viewers as well. So I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you had me back. Thanks.
I'm happy that you came, and so the last few days has been interesting. There's a lot of things that has happened. You have updated the game economy that got. Different responses from different people. Let's put it like that. There are some obvious positives. The reasons why that has been communicated. We will go through and why this has happened, what happened, and what the result of that is. But before that, cliffhanger. No, okay. We spoke. Is it 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? Something like that. Yeah. And since then, a lot of things has happened. The auctions of the legendaries has gone live, and that has been insane. Yeah. How has that been for you?
It's been great. It's been really tremendous. And I think the thing that we love as a company is that before, when those kind of initial one-on-ones took place back in January, one whale accumulated 24 of the, I'm sorry, let me turn off my Slack. Apparently I'm fairly popular and people need to get messages to me directly. So I apologize for that. So we had one person who we know in the community, like, oh, it's William Quigley, or it's me, or it's somebody inside of Wax. It's actually not. We know who this person is. They're not affiliated with the company in the least. They just love what we do, and they're kind of a longtime fan and supporter of the business, which is great. You love customers like this, and we sort of said, okay, we're happy that this person's really deeply engaged. I think the thing that we're seeing with these new auctions is that the floor is going up across the board, and it's all different buyers, right? So that's a real positive signal to the community that it's not just one guy. Now, that one person continues to buy, right? Don't get me wrong. They accumulated 11 more since then. But we've had like 10 or 12 or 15, I want to say, different wallets have won the auctions this time around, which we think is a really, really good sign in terms of kind of higher level interest of people coming in. They see what we're doing. They hear how we kind of handle things and communicate. And, the reputation I think we're building is really good, despite kind of the recent bumps, which, again, I'm not that fussed over. But the auction's been great. They've been terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope to get a legendary someday, but at these prices, it's out of my hands. The big guy, he has deep pockets in the Wax blockchain.
Very, very deep pockets. It's funny, Andrew, I'll tell you. So I looked at the Binance auctions initially, right? And they went for like $1,400. Yeah. The first one on the first day. And I said, okay, great. So I kind of stashed, like $2,500 worth of Wax. I'm like, okay, I'm going to snipe one. Because I sort of knew what the value was relative to the Binance, smart chain and how they did there. And I knew how the assets are going to perform in the game. So I said, $2,500, this is a steal. I'm gonna steal it. And I've, look at me, a little insider trading, and like right away, just way outside of my price range. I'm like, oh, okay, I've got to try to get on a whitelist like everybody else, and I never did. I've told that story 100 times. It's frustrating. They're like, why don't you just put yourself on the whitelist? I'm like, because that's the exact problem that developers in the space have. Is they're all self-interested, right? Yeah. And like, look at us, kind of skim where we can and sell where we can and take advantage of it. Like, I don't do that. I put myself on whitelists. I don't make it. I try to buy things. I don't get to buy them. It's, the two Scotties that I owned, I bought off the marketplace, off the secondary market. And when we've done promotions with, OKX and others, like we had to go buy packs on the market. We had to do all these things because, again, integrity matters to us, right? We have to do what we say. We have to back it up with our actions. Our words are fine, but our actions matter more. And that's what we always tell people to, pay attention to is what are the actions that we are taking as an organization.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I think you need to have a set of morals, and you need to follow them, and at all times, and that might be difficult at sometimes. It's
a very lonely path you walk down sometimes, and this week is one of those lonely paths. And it's funny, as critical as people were, there was just as many people vocally happy that things went the way that they did. And they're like, they don't say it in Gen Chat and Discord necessarily on Twitter, but just, they've reached out to me personally and thinking, hey, thank God, you guys had the guts to do this. I can see how this would not be an easy decision. And by the way, candidly, we don't hide from the things that we do. I'm there in Gen Chat and all the different channels on Discord and Telegram and whatnot, answering questions, standing in front of the decisions that we make. And I think a lot of companies, and again, I've doxed myself, so I'm very publicly kind of findable.
You and me both.
Right, the both of us. Yeah, we have that in common, which is great. But, we don't hide behind our decisions, and we're happy to discuss them. When people want to have civil conversations, right, we're happy to discuss them, kind of what we did, why we did it, when we did it. Are we going to do it again? What has the impact been? Finally somebody said, hey, you made all these unbelievable changes. What are the results? Like, nobody wants to talk about, is this what you expected? Is this going the way you want it to go? Like, all they care about is what did you do, right? Not, how's it been going since then? So I think there's a lot you and I can talk about today that I kind of can't wait to get into.
Yeah, and we have a comment that one guy keeps saying that it's William Quigley buying them, and you said it's not. And
no,
you said it's an early supporter of the Wax blockchain, Wax project, which translates to an early investor in the project. So that's that.
I think this is a long time. I think it's a long time Wax person. I can't tell you if William Quigley has ever even played blockchain brawlers, let alone bought an asset. William is a very, very, very busy guy. He's Dubai, the Binance conference in Dubai. He did kind of the NFT Miami. Like, he's all over the place. He doesn't have time to do these kind of things.
So we need to fix that, right? But okay.
I wish he did, by the way. I wish he was in there bidding on the auctions like everybody else. I would love that.
Today, I saw an announcement that the token is listed on another exchange. So it's on KuCoin as well.
Yeah. Big announcement.
Which is very nice. More exchanges to list it. And as I understood, it was the ERC20 token. Which we have seen with Alien Worlds, that version of the token gets listed way easier on exchanges than the native one. They do love their Ethereum nodes and to use them for transfers.
They did. And what's so funny is that, the OKX announcement was a big deal because, only, I think only TLM had been is the only other active game that I think you can trade sand on OKX and you can trade, TLM, but, we were only the second active game ever to be listed on OKX. And that was a huge win for us kind of just emotionally as a company. But then, that got us, Wabi, and then that got us Gates. And now we have KuCoin, and people are realizing like, this is not a fluke, right? We are building towards, as many exchanges as we can to give the token stability, to give it liquidity, to give it all accessibility. Like there's all these things that we're doing. And again, people are saying, well, when are you going to go into Binance? When you go here? Like we never comment on exchanges, we just don't, we can't, first of all, but we don't. But if they look at these patterns of behavior and what we're actually able to demonstrate that we're doing, like you can see kind of where we want to go and what we want to do. And and so I love the question of, do you think you'll be on any more exchanges? Like, well, first of all, I can't answer that, but we're accumulating them. So know that as a company, we're always looking to make sure that our content is accessible. We always say, kind of liquidity everywhere, but utility on wax. Well, the same goes for the token. We want the token to be accessible to as many people as possible. That's a never ending goal for us. That's kind of a part of our SOP.
Yeah. And I know that Binance, for example, if you were in a conversation with them about listing the token there, you are unable to speak about it. And if you do, they might not list you.
That's exactly right. That's why I don't touch that subject matter in the least. I am so focused on building a game that's fun to play, that's great. Like the token stuff takes care of itself by other people, not me. So I actually don't even know what any conversations are going on right now because it's not my bailiwick. At some point, somebody will say, hey, tomorrow, like literally I got a note last night at 10 p.m. At 5 a.m. tomorrow, we think a tweet's going to go out around the KuCoin. I'm like, oh, we're on KuCoin. Great. Okay, good to know. Like, that's like how involved I am. Like, I don't know anything about any other exchanges until they happen because that's not my focus.
Yep. So that's good. And another thing that happened is that you got verified on Twitter, which is very nice. Well, Twitter. Elon Musk's new toy.
Yeah. He's quite the character. Look, again, we try to stay out of we try to stay above the fray, right? We don't like to, because there's a saying, don't get into a fight with a pig because, you'll both end up in the mud and the pig's going to love it. Like we don't tend to do that. I do feel a responsibility to be visible on Discord and on Telegram where we have real engaged users that they want to and have answers to questions. And we don't want to wait for kind of a monthly AMA to get them up to speed on things. And so, we do the public disclosures in terms of the blog posts, but I try to be very visible and very like approachable. And I think that I don't do that because I have an obligation to, I want to be visible. I want to show that we are much more like present in the community. Like we have our finger on the pulse and we don't hide from things. And so, they're like, wow, the development team's like always here, always answering questions all the time, even the inane questions that don't deserve to be answered. They will go ahead and answer them. Like, yeah, that's who we are. So, we're not going to change our DNA, just because maybe something went the way that somebody didn't think it would go.
So, okay. On the update, let's start with what you have done in the interface since the launch. You have done a few tweaks there. The healing. I lost
the slider bar.
The slider bar exactly has been updated and made it easier for people to use.
The heal all, the brawl all.
Yeah, exactly.
We did a little bit of a remix of the title track. Most people can't tell, it was subtle, but it was something important to me. I'm like, oh, I wish in these 14 seconds this happened. And Yoshi was like, yep, I got you, boss. And he did it. So there's always things going on all the time. And we do a new push every Tuesday. And sometimes it's a big push that requires a lot of patch notes like last week's. This week's, it was small stuff. We did some stuff to fix that addressed issues on WebKit. But we're always putting out content every single week. There's updates going every single week. Like we're investing, we're engaged every single week. And so Tuesday at kind of 1 o'clock Pacific, you can always find hopefully something new and better and differentiated to look forward to, along with patch notes. Most times they go with those changes. So we think and by the way, the brawl all, heal all update is chaining all these actions together. It saves players so much CPU and the transactional cost is much, much lower. Not that people have CPU problems on Brawlers, they don't.
Yeah.
But again, just because we knew that was good from a CPU usage standpoint, but yet they didn't need it, we did anyway because we thought it was a nice quality of life win. Because people don't like
you will need it for your own sake, in the long run, the more active the Wax blockchain is, the more dApps are here, the more games, the more Wax you will have to have staked your account. So it makes sense for you, even if you are covering it with the team's resources.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
You need to be smart. Use as little RAM as possible and as little CPU as possible at all times.
That's true. And hopefully you and your listeners have had a good experience in terms of what those resource levels look like on your own accounts.
Yeah, the last few weeks there has been some issues with people pushing transactions because they are getting stuck in the peering network between nodes. And the reason for that is that all public APIs are being spammed, and not by a small amount of people, but they are renting a lot of hardware on a lot of cloud services, and they use them to just continue spam different transactions, the same request over and over again until it works, or until they get banned, and that spams down the nodes, or you have to rate limit them, and then they have new IPs and they continue to do that. Our ban list is in the thousands of IPs just from these spammers. Wow. Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah, it's funny. We last time you said we're using public APIs or private APIs. I said we're using private APIs, which they are semi-private. They're not completely private, but they are semi-private. They're not rate limited the same way. Like membership has its privileges, right? And because we are Wax and kind of our financial backing, our technological infrastructure, and our engineering talent, has really designed this experience to be really, we think, robust and responsive and as low cost or as optimized as possible. And it was funny. Like 3 weeks before launch, I feel like there's CPU problems all over the Wax blockchain. How are you going to be any different? Like, well, we're Wax. I mean, where do you want me to break this down for you? Like, it's completely different. We're not, any of these other publicly accessible rate limit, RPCs. So
the main issue with dApps on Wax is that they rely on the user's resources. And unless you have thousands of Wax, you will be limited at some point. The question is when and how hard. I mean, that is the same. I bought NFTs on Ethereum back in November. I bought 3 NFTs and paid, I think it was $350 in one transaction gas fee. And if I used those $350 and I bought Wax and staked it, that would be a nice chunk of CPU for my daily replenishment of CPU. So that's very nice.
It's very true.
Yeah, it is. So the update on the Brawlers. The reason. Let's start by you explaining the why. Why this update? What's the thought from the team? Why do we need it?
We saw some things that were super unhealthy, like really, really unhealthy, like game killing behaviors. And we always said, like, if you remember the first time I came on here, I said, look, we're going to build a game for many, many years. Like, we don't look at it in kind of the short-term focus, which a lot of people do. A lot of like, oh my God, I've been burned before, so I'm going to get in, I'm going to make a lot of money, I'm going to get out. Like, we don't ever care about if you got in and you made a lot of money and then you got out. Like, we want to build a game that's really fun to play for many, many years to come. So let's just start with that. And then we also said we have a couple of behaviors that we've modeled that we think this is how it's going to work. We know that Brawl is going to be super valuable. We think people are going to move towards a Brawl optimized lineup. And we know that, the low end of the market, Scotty is going to provide the gold. So then the people at the high end of the market will be gold pinched and they'll have to buy. You'll have this nice kind of two ends of the market working well together. And then ultimately we said to the community, we said, look, we're only going to put out, 200 one-of-ones pre-launch. We're going to put out 750 packs. So, and 100 Ric Flair. So that's 1050 NFTs. You guys will need to be producers. So we hope that you will then be producing content that gets sold. And we sort of said, this is the way the world should work. And we modeled it bottoms up and top down and, 10 different ways. And the thing that we wanted to have happen did not happen, which was, people craft things to put them into the marketplace to bring new players in, because we all understand the value of growing your player base. And we also told the players, like, you're the producers, like, you can make a really healthy return if you're selling these things that you're crafting and putting into the marketplace. Like Scotty's at one point, we're going for, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000. So why wouldn't you craft a Scotty and put it on the marketplace and bank that win? but they weren't. They were accumulating. They were crafting and accumulating. They were holding all their assets, which was so counterintuitive to me. Like, it's like you have these assets that are worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're grinding for a little bit of Brawl and a little bit of gold every day. Why wouldn't you just bank these wins? So instinctively, right? No,
people did not do that in Farmer's World either.
Yeah, and look, Farmer's World is an interesting kind of paradigm, and whether that was lightning in a bottle or they got just super lucky or whatnot. They have multiple currencies and managing and all that. And I mean, we can kind of Monday morning quarterback that all day long. I think the thing that we said is look, we have certain assumptions around behavior, and if they don't map to what we think, we will change them. And we will not hesitate to change them. And so we saw all these Scotty farms kind of crop up, and we said, okay, well, what is the impact? The impact is too much gold and, too much Brawl into the market. And should we have anticipated for that? Yeah, maybe, but it doesn't matter, because we also said in the same breath, Andrews, we said, look, we're going to keep the audience really small, right? We're intentionally not going to market or promote it and try to get in tens of thousands of players on day one, because we know behaviors, because you can never predict what, a handful of people are going to do moment to moment. You can have all of your, your stopgaps in place, and you can have all your monitoring in place, but you can't predict with any kind of precision, this is what's going to happen with this cohort of people that we've never seen interact with this content. And that unknown, we said, okay, we have to have contingencies. And as soon as we saw these things, these really unhealthy things go south, and I look at that as, okay, so a couple kind of interesting numbers for you is, on day one, we had the kind of the 200 one-of-ones, we had the 697 Scotties, we had, 30, berries, and we had 8, Johnnies. So basically the ratio of one-of-ones to everybody else was kind of, 75-25, right? So it's okay. The low end of the market's 3/4 of it, the high end, 25%. Here's the output of those things. And we modeled it. What quickly happened is, because everybody started crafting the Scotties, which we thought was a nice entry point for everyone, and holding them, we got to the point where 98% of everything crafted was a Scotty Wide-Eye, which then took the distribution of Scotty Wide-Eye was 92% of the players and 8% of everything else. It was way, way out of kilter. And we saw them, we're like, okay, well, what's the net effect of that? Is that okay? Or what's the net effect? Well, the net effect is the amount of gold being burned, the gap between drops and burning, was just growing every single day. And because the gap was growing and people weren't able to sell gold at the rate at which it was needed, then the price of gold bottomed out to $10, even sub $10. I think I saw one piece of gold sell for $9.98. And we always thought it should be in the $50 range. And just instinctively, not based on anything, just instinctively, $50 felt right. So when it was at $400 a piece, we thought that's not good, but it quickly came down to $300 and then $200. Okay, it's going to settle in. But once these Scotty farms kind of took hold in week 2.5, and that burn rate gap got bigger, it went from 76% burn rate down to 64% burn rate. And it just kept growing every day. And because we weren't growing the audience to absorb it, that gap persisted. Then we looked at the Brawl coming in on the contract every single hour, and it's just growing and growing and growing. Okay, this is a problem. Now we can, make the hard decision, and we can, rate limit or limit the drop rate of the gold across the board, and we can raise the price of things, and we can increase the crafting frequency, and we can then limit the amount of Brawl, and we can do all these things. And then I spent last Easter weekend, I'm going to sneeze, hold on. At least I think I am. Okay, it passed. I spent
fake one.
Yeah, thank you. I spent last weekend, just buried in, financial models and, perceptions and impacts and all these different scenarios, and, a lot of conferring internally with kind of what should it be and what is the messaging and how much should we get ahead of it and on and on. But all the while I'm there in the community telling them things are happening, and I'm thinking about it, and we're talking about we wanted to show them we were here with you, and we wanted to manage expectations. And so,
you said, and also you said on both the first and the second interview that we had that you were going to adapt things and change things, and it would probably happen. Well, I don't think you said any time frame, but I think you were clear that it could happen at any time.
Right. And so we said, look, we're always going to do things for the greater good. Right. And we really wanted to create a game. I think kind of, in hindsight, Should we have launched before PvP? Probably not. But we wanted to show people, here's the game, here's your assets, start to build towards PvP, and it'll all be well and good. And what happened is people got the assets, they started making a really healthy return, or an unhealthy return, right? In this case.
Yeah, unhealthy, I would say.
And then when we changed that, they're like, F you, and oh my God, and the world's coming. It was like, wait a minute. Like, we're like, I'm losing so much money. What do you mean? You're losing money? Like, you sold all your stuff? No, I haven't sold anything. Well, then how are you losing money? Well, are you going to sell? No, I'm not going to sell. Okay, well, again, how are you losing money? Well, I'm not making as much money. I'm like, well, that's okay, right? Like, are you planning on quitting anytime soon? Are you going to play with us for the next 6 months to a year? I'm like, well, yeah, of course I am. Well, then you're not losing money. You're just not making it. Like, it's just there's these arguments that come in that.
One thing that people feel is that they made a decision on when they should craft something with like they crafted a ring or a tool or a brawler with the information they had, and 2 days later it been nerfed, so the value of what they crafted was less, and they had a choice to either put that ring on their account or lose value on that ring because it got nerfed pretty hard. And in that sense, I would say that they either had to hold that, they can't list it on the market and hope it will sell because it will lose value, so they had to apply it on their account because it would be getting nerfed in just a day or two.
So let's be very, 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 very clear. The rings that were crafted before the nerf came in way outperformed the rings that we have today. Like, if you look at the depreciation cost of a legendary ring before we did the economy changes, the depreciation was like 7.14 brawl per match, so very low. Now, if you look at just the brawl output per crafting cost, it's like 8.3. So the rings actually got worse with the exchange. So if you crafted something beforehand, good for you. You've got the best, most optimized ring in the game. You win, right? Like, that's what we said. And what we said is, look, you've got them on the market for sale. Take them off the market and activate them so you can use them at their optimized value. That's what you want to do. That's the real win for you as a player. Now, maybe you spend a lot of resources and you try to profit them and put them on the market, and you're going to make a nice ROI on the sale. That's unfortunate, but look, you're never going to have a solution that pleases everybody. You're just not. And if you try to be in the please everyone business, you'll end up failing and you'll drive yourself crazy. The thing that you have to maintain is you want to do things that benefit the greater good. And I say that there is a kind of a narrow window of people that kind of got assets between Thursday and maybe Saturday, because we were very, very specific with our messaging. Saturday morning, I'm on Discord. Changes are coming. This is not healthy. Look out. Well, what are they? I can't tell you because of selective disclosure, and I actually don't know exactly what they are, but I'm telling you these things are going to happen. Not buyer beware, but you know that we're going to make changes, and everybody knew it, and we said it all over the place. I wish you would have just told me how extreme it was. I can't tell you how extreme these things are because, again, we get looked at by the Security and Exchange Commission, right? Like insider trading, selective disclosure, like all these things we have to be super sensitive to. And we had a conversation with, again, even above my pay grade, what kind of heads up do we give them? And the answer was, we can't, because we have kind of regulatory concerns that we have to be aware of. And then people are like, well, gee, could you just do this again? Yeah, we possibly could, but we're going to signal when these changes are coming. We just won't tell you what they are. Yeah. But there's this larger problem here that we should talk about, really, which is really, the current paradigm that exists in play to earn gaming conditions players to care about one thing and one thing only. It's making money. And that's not the solution. That's not what we're building, but that's what people are conditioned to today. And so what you need to do is you need to create a game with real depth, right? And one that is filled with really interesting choices that people actually enjoy playing. And it has to have an acceptable cost of entry. It has to have clear upgrade paths in terms of people's progression. And you have to give the players kind of that ownership of their virtual items and their currencies with a real meaningful level of utility. These are all things that we're doing and we're working on, right? And if you take all that and you wrap it, inside this player-driven economy that is managed towards sustainability over the long term, and preserves against inflation, then it can run for a very, very long time. And if you do that, right, you're then building a game where the core focus is a fun and engaging experience. If you do that, players will stick around for much more than an ROI. right? So there's that. And then, and look, I think the thing that people have to be super mindful of, they're like, well, gee, every single pay to earn project has failed and on and on. And I get that. But the reason is really simple. If everybody shows up to the same thing for the same reason with the same expected ROI, then it just becomes an optimized race to the bottom. Like, this shouldn't surprise people. This has happened on these other projects because they don't have this gameplay first mentality in mind, right? I mean, you need to have ownership of actual assets where players put more kind of value in the time and the engagement around those assets, and the strategy on how they use those assets. And if you do that, and let's be really clear, if you can make them care more about the assets and the strategy of how they use those assets within the construct of an actual game, then they're caring more about, the investment of the game. They care more because of the community. They care more about the real relationships they're building. They care so much more about that world that they live in than the profit motivator that exists without that. And I think we've done an incredible job of building community. These people in the community are building real relationships. Like, we're crushing so many of these things without question. And we will continue to optimize the economy to get preservation and ward against inflation and all that stuff. And we're building a real honest to God game to be played, I assure you. And we'll get all this stuff right. But along the way,
that PvP is for Q3, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
It is.
So it is coming. And that is when people can expect to have this gameplay. They can expect to have this feeling. And just to be clear, for me, I've been in a lot of these play to earn projects. They all have this thing in common, that at one point they go up and then they go down, and some have these cycles repeated. Some has this cycle once and then disappears. And that might be partly of the team, or it was just a bad model from the start or whatever.
We've always said we want to just plug along just a little bit more every single month, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're literally, Anders, we're 3 weeks in. People are like, oh my God, this guy. I'm like, dude, we built this game in 4 months. We're in week 3. Like, we're really good at building games. And when people came in on day one, they're like, oh my God, this is the best version of this kind of game I've ever played. Like, great, that was in 4 months. Imagine what happens when I've got 8 months or 12 months or even more time to build into this experience. We've always said, be patient with us. The first day will be the worst day, but we'll get better every single day. And by the way, we're going to build in some player versus player versus player versus player stuff, sort of global competitions that have really cool, super compelling rewards for people. Like, all that stuff is coming. Right? Competitions are coming, championship belt stuff is coming in advance of PvP. So people feel like they'll be able to compete asynchronously. But so it's not like it's not going to be any new content until Q3. It's like, no, we have a full roadmap of things we're doing, right, that we think are compelling and fun and interesting. Hopefully they matter to you. Maybe they don't. But, it's not like we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs waiting for PvP to get built and crossing our fingers and hoping it all works out.
Yeah. So okay, let's dig into the one side that I got rather vocal on. I tweeted about it and I took down those tweets. I posted about it in my Telegram.
I didn't hear about that.
You were probably sleeping, and I talked about Marty and Yasta and a few other guys. So what happened was that Scotty was nerfed. So for anyone that wants to join the game, they had to put up a lot of money to enter the game, and the cheapest option to go was the Scotties, which is a lot of money for everyone that isn't in the crypto wealthy. It was a lot of money to get into the game. And when the first announcement of the update was made, we went down to 50 brawl per round with a brawler, with a Scotty.
60.
No, that was
60 on 50. It was net 10.
Oh yes. It went down to 60. Yeah, from 75, right?
No, from 70.
Oh, 70. Yeah. It went down to 60, and then
maybe you know the number. Maybe you know numbers better than I do.
I know the numbers now. I don't know. I didn't have this. I have this nice like forum that I created that I will just show people that I have all the breakdown of what happens now.
When you say Scotty, you mean ungeared Scotty in a common ring.
Exactly. Yeah.
70 common. 70 brawl bros, 50 brawl to heal, so 20 net brawl, and a 9.14 depreciation per ring, netted him at 10.86 net brawl all in.
Yeah, and then it went down to 0.84 net brawl after the update, which meant that for me as a player, if I started to play and I wanted to upgrade to another brawler, it would take me 5,000 rounds just on the brawl. We don't count for the gold, and that you actually get extra gold that you can sell and you can buy brawl to get it cheap faster. That is 5,000 rounds to get it. Now you made a change to add to 61 instead of 60, which halved that time down to made it down to 2,500 rounds instead of 5,000. Which is a huge difference for a new player to go in and actually get another brawler. And then from the gold, it was a net profit of gold every 50 rounds down to now 33 rounds. So currently every 33 rounds you play, on average you will get 1 gold extra, and you will get about 2 brawl per round with a Scotty right now, if you have a common ring and common Scotty, which most new people would have. And before the update, it meant that 5,000 days and the price of gold was 50 wax at that time, which it is right now, which meant that it would be close to a year or more for people to get a second upgrade of their Scotties. And just a few days before, that number was very different. So from a perspective in the blockchain space, when you go to play to earn, the prices go up and down. Everything moves in cycles where you need to time them decently to not get a negative impact, because you don't know if you entered in the early stage, late stage of that cycle, or whatever happened. So with that update, what happened is that anyone that entered a few days before with this high value of the Scotty and the common ring, and then that got nerfed a lot, so it would take a very long time for them to be able to create something, and it was very low return. If you automate it, you go 24 rounds per day. Otherwise, you probably end up with 8 to 16, which means that then it is up to 1.5 year-ish until you can upgrade that by playing this. And that for me felt unfair for anyone that joined in the last week for a high price to figure out, okay, this is what happens. And I'm all for that. The market is not something you control. That is something that is outside of your control. So the market price goes down. It is a speculative asset. People go into these games. They need to understand that everything they put in, they might lose it all. But that is the case. Hopefully that will not happen. But people need to understand that if you look at the other projects in the past, this is not uncommon to see that you lose value. There are a few exceptions that have done very well over a prolonged time, but they are fewer than the masses. And the reasons for that is a lot of reasons. So this upset me a lot.
I'm sure there's a question in here somewhere.
Yeah, no, so
I know all these things that you said to me. I'm sure there's a question in here.
Yeah.
Although I will counter, I think some of the things you say aren't exactly accurate, but let's just assume that you're 100% correct, and it's the gospel according to Anders is the single source of truth.
It is the single source of truth. Always.
Okay, great.
No,
okay, great.
So the question is really for a person that had the one common and one brawler, which is not me. I have multiples. I'm not in the same pool. This is not affecting me as an individual, but and everything like that. I just want to make that clear as well. For that person that bought it in the last few days, and then the update went, so it nerfed, the market reacted by reducing the value of the assets pretty hard, and the income in the game, which currently we don't have a PvP. What we have right now is you log in and you hit this button and you brawl and everything. So what you have is the income. That is the game at this stage. Like, how can you ease them with this update so they feel like it's less unfair? Like, if you watch it and you see this update, it feels unfair. You bought something and then you, like, from a perspective from a new user, they see you as an admin of this game. You are the guys that are building this. You made my asset worse by this update, and you already explained the why you did it. But how can we ease that for a person that actually entered this and they put in this money to try to play this game and then it's changed?
Look, I'm not insensitive to those people, and it's a small cohort, kind of that Friday, kind of purchase Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like, assume if you bought in Wednesday and you played a lot through Monday, you had 5 days of pretty frothy earnings. So let's just assume that people bought Wednesday or earlier, they don't count. So
yeah,
people
exactly.
who came in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, let's just those 4 days where you were maybe at risk. I mean, you earned some of your investment back, but look, I mean, the reality is, you can't perfectly time the markets. You can't buy at the low. You can't sell at the high. I mean, you can if you're super lucky. It usually has less to do with intelligence and more to just do with just either great timing or terrible timing. And candidly, I can't say anything today that's going to make anybody go, okay, never mind. Like, the thing that I will say is, look, if we didn't make these changes, you would have lost everything because the game would be dead. As it is now, you're just earning at a slower rate, right? So let's just start with that premise, because I assure you, the rate at which we were going, the token would go through the floor and all the assets would be on the market and they wouldn't be worth any money. And it's so much harder to resuscitate a dead game, right? It's easier to tighten up and then to give back. And so know that we applied this tourniquet and we did a data change. Now we're working on systemic changes that actually allow us to put the value back into Scotty. I think the other mistake that people make is like, oh, this is permanent and this is forever. And forever my earning, I'm going to have to brawl those 2,000 times that Anders talked about. It
is the price right now.
Right. I mean, people just assume like this is now forever.
No. Like, nothing
is forever, right? And if berry farms become a thing or cult farms become a thing, we will look at things that we think are detrimental to the long-term health of the product, right? And again, that's why we're trying to move away from this ROI calculation, trying to build a game that's really fun. And then when he sort of says, look, while we're building this PvP, like, come in and build your roster, have some fun. Reality, people are like, nope, let's make as much money as we can and as fast as we can, because we've been conditioned to rug pulls and being lied to and being deceived, where developers are skimming and selling their own token, which they manufacture for free. There's no skin in the game. Like, that's not our mentality at all. We haven't sold one single item or one single piece of Brawl. Like, I just don't sell anything. First of all, it's a bad look, and second of all, I actually believe so much in the long-term success of this title that I'm trying to build the best roster I can possibly build, because I feel like, at some point, having, really high valued, powerful assets is going to serve me well in having to, play a really fun game, not like, man, this is how I'm going to earn as much money as possible. So the thing I guess I would say to them is, and by the way, you can't discount the gold piece. I know you said we don't count gold.
No, it's just that I haven't done the math because it's a little bit complicated. You need to.
It's actually really simple, right? So you're netting 2.5 gold per common ring over every 3 days if you automate it, which your words, not mine. So in 30 days, that's 25 gold. That's 1,440 Brawl. Like, those numbers are pretty significant in terms of secondary market sales. That's $500-600 worth of value. And if you look at the Scotties on the market now, they're going for $650. So you assume you people say, oh, I've broken even. Actually, you haven't broken even. You actually got a 50% return because the thing that you invested in, you still own. Right. And so people talk about, well, how are you going to help make up for this loss? I'm actually not. I'm going to build a game that runs for a really long time, that performs well. And because your ROI calculation is no longer 8 days, which is what it used to be, it's now 38 days or 28 days.
It was 2 or 3 days the first few days.
Was it? Yeah. So see, and that's like, nobody got mad about that, by the way. Nobody said, I want to have you on the show right now to talk about how this is way too good. Like, nobody wanted to have that conversation. Nope. They all wanted to say, yay, this is the best. You should all jump in and do this. It's super unhealthy. It will not last, but you should do it now while you can. There's this whole notion of opportunity cost and the FOMO that was building. It's like, oh, let's
a gold rush.
Let's take advantage of this while this exploit exists. And we always said we're not going to let exploits exist, but people are like, let's hurry up and get while the getting's good. And then when we took that gravy train away, they want to table flip and say, how dare you? And, you're this and you're that. I'm like, no, okay, that's fine. I mean, look, like I said, it's a lot of times it's like, arguing with my wife. I just have to agree with her so the argument stops. I'm like, you're right, I'm wrong. Like 27 years of marriage, you're right. I'll never do that again. I'm sorry. Those kind of things, because there's no winning that argument. People are super angry and they're emotional. It's like, you hear them out, you tell them that you're sorry because you are, but yet know that we have your best interest at heart. We really do. Like, we're going to build something that's so fun, that's so engaged. We've got so many cool announcements coming out. The KuCoin exchange was good for token stability. We invested in the liquidity swap pool on Alcor. We're going to support DeFi box swaps as well. You can stake and get staking rewards in those pools if you want to. Like, there's all these things that we're trying to do. We're trying to move away from DeFi into gaming, but we do not dismiss what we are today, but we're trying to add to it, because I think in the perfect world, that paradigm exists between real game, real player-driven economies, and once those things come together and that hybrid exists, everything changes.
Yeah, and I saw a comment in chat, which is return of investment is still 110 days, and for me, if anyone can buy something with a return of investment, meaning that you get your money back in 110 days, if you have a deal like that for any investor going back in time, they would all take it.
Yes,
stock investors are happy for 8 to 20%. If they get 20, they are very ecstatic, and to some, like, okay, some are extreme, they want the insanity, but most are happy with a stable 8%.
It sounds like you're defending us.
Yeah, no, I am. Like, the thing is that what I got upset about is not the change per se. Right. I thought it was stupid to damage the people that want to get in early, and they want to have an ability to play and get a chance to upgrade, and for them to actually, like, if, as I said, I don't calculate the goal here because the goal goes up and down. For a normal person, you should get like 2 goals every 3 to 6 days, depending on how often you hit the button extra. But for a Barry, that's like, just with the Brawl right now is 9,125 rounds. Like, hit the button 9,000 rounds minus the gold. Yeah, Barry, the second guy.
So Barry's earning rates are exactly what Scotty's earning rates were before, minus the 1% on the gold side. So his brawl rate is actually really good. His cost is higher. But I think
what I meant is, like, for a new person, you come in and you look at this and you feel like, okay, I want to get in on the better guys. I want to have a chance to upgrade my guy, and to do that right now, I need to play for a very long time, and I need to hope that the gold is stable or goes up to increase my time, or be like, okay, this is how long it will take for me to get another guy, so I can have this better guy to get more brawls. I can continue to do this, and like, if I want to speed it up, I want to add a tool right now on Scotty loses you lose brawl if you use a tool.
You don't want to put a tool on Scotty. Look, we're trying to, everything we do, Anders, by the way, is with some desire to learn, right? And so we said, okay, what will happen if we put Scotty, a naked Scotty, no gear, who earns 2.5 gold every 75 matches. He earns 1,440 brawl every single month. Like, that works for some people at certain price levels. Like, if you can get in for $600 and you earn $600 a month, that's really good. Or if he earns $300 a month and in 2 months you get, like, that's great. That's all well and good. But let's see what happens. Let's see how the upper end of the market reacts. And people are like, oh, you killed Scotty. You think we killed Scotty. You can go on the Scotty, the worthless asset that is Scotty White-Eye. You can go into Atomic Hub right now. I think there's 28 for sale. There's 5,500 that were made, like almost 6,000. There's 28 for sale.
Yep. So
this supposedly worthless asset, only 28 people or 28 items are on the market to be bought today.
Yeah, it is not worthless. That is the wrong word.
Right. That's my point. Like, people are like, oh, you killed Scotty. Nobody's going to want to own a Scotty ever. Actually, if I've killed him and nobody wants to own him, why aren't you selling yours? Like, is kind of the idea. So that's one. And two is, I think it's super important. Like, you hit on something that we're really, really kind of passionate about, is that upgrade path for players. And nobody was upgrading, right? We kept Scotty cheap.
There was not enough time to do it yet, so. No, I have multiples, cheap. And a few days before I managed to get a better ring. That's the only thing that I had. Like, I bought new tools. I made sure to get tools because I got higher drop rate of gold, and gold is better to get and sell and to get going. But I did not have time to get any new brawler at all from the in-game earnings. Potentially, the there was an uptick of gold when it sold for over 1,000 wax. And at that time, sure, if I managed to sell most of my gold there, I would have been able to buy a better brawler.
And look, I think you bring up a good point about the variability of the cost of gold. First of all, we don't price these things in the market, but we do look at kind of, supply and demand. And I will tell you, since we've made that change, the gold burn rate on Monday at the time of the change was like 64%. It was really low. And then right afterwards, I think today it's like 68.5%. So it's going in the right direction. And if you look at kind of number of gold per player at its peak was like 5.6 gold per player on average. Today it's down to like 4.1. So we see the amount of overall gold shifting down. We know that rings are going to start to break soon. We know that gear is going to start to break soon. We know that people are going to have to reinvest that gold. We feel like it's still going to take kind of 10 to 14 days for all these shifts that we've made to really kind of play out in the market. I think people are like, okay, you made the changes. Now everything fixed? The answer is I actually don't know. I will tell you that the behaviors we've seen that we thought were really terrible have been fixed. And we think the impact on the market is a trailing effect. It's going to catch up. But let us live through a couple of breakage cycles of rings and gears, which is, kind of 7 to 10 days away. And then on that 7 to 10 days from right now, let's look at burn rates. Let's look at gold pricing. Let's look at kind of how players are behaving. Let's go from there. And then that'll tell us, we're on the right track or not. Because, we run the risk of having gold be too scarce, right? There's a real, we nerfed gold across the board and raised the recipes because we wanted to suck all of that gold out of the market to get pricing back to an inventory levels to a healthier number, right? So, there was one point in time after we made the change on Monday that gold got back to $50 a bar, right? And then it settled in around 25 to 26, and then it drifted down to 19. But now things are going to start to break again. We saw, I'll tell you an example, right before I came on here at 9 a.m. California time, we dropped 310 pieces of gold were earned in that hour, and 460 gold bars were used. It's like,
that's nice.
We're right. It's really nice. We're going the other way. So these things work, right? But it takes time for them to play out. I think people, they see a change, they immediately want that change to be felt in the market. It's not always going to be that way because people don't all kind of behave and react the same way.
No, and they never will. Personally, I just stack gold right now. I just stack them. I just let them build up. I don't know. I think I have 28 or 30 or something.
Smart.
Right now.
That's good. Yeah, you can almost get a Colt. I would encourage you to get a Colt. Colt is really powerful.
But I need a lot of Brawl tokens for that.
That's true too. Well, you can always go into the centralized exchanges or the decentralized exchanges.
Where? There's a new one, right?
Yeah, you can go to KuCoin.
But I would use it on Alcor because it's easier if you want it on the Wax blockchain.
Alcor is easier, and we do have a liquidity pool, which a lot of people are used to using on mobile devices and whatnot. It's just simple. If they don't know limit orders or market, kind of looking at the market limits and whatnot, like Alcor can be hard to use if you don't know what you're looking at. It gives you a little bit of brain damage, but I'm pretty good at it now. I had to watch a video of a guy for 15 minutes. This is how this works. Like, thank God.
Yeah, if you're not a trader, it's very complicated to understand all of the graphs and everything. And I understand. I remember when I started to buy things, I was so confused on all the exchanges. I felt like, how can people do that? And now it's just second nature for me.
Right, of course. Once you start to opt into it, you're like, okay, I totally get it now. But it can be intimidating, initially. And so liquidity pools are easy to use. And people are like, why doesn't Wax have a liquidity pool? Well, why do you need it? Because we don't understand how to use DEXs. I'm like, got it. We'll stake some Wax. We'll stake some Brawl. We'll give you some staking rewards. Alcor has staking rewards. Knock yourselves out. And they're like, okay, thanks. So, yeah. So we're sometimes a little slow to the game, but we always have players' best interests in mind.
So, okay, for a person that comes and wanna see this, and they go and they figure out, hey, I want to join this. And right now, if you were a person that looked at the prices right now, it's a good place to enter based on the history of assets and today. We don't know what happens tomorrow.
I think it's a great place to enter. I mean, if you look at Scotties are $625 in the market, but the craft one is like $1,300. Like, that spread is very intentional. We want to make sure that we solve the Scotty farm problem first. before we encourage people to craft their way in. We're also looking at inventory levels of Scotty on the market. We wanted players to sell. We want players to sell to win as well, sell to gain if they possibly can. We'd like that to happen. That may or may not happen. We can't control that, but like there's things that we're looking to take place, and we hope that they do. But if you can get in now, I think now's a great time to get in. As long as just be patient with us. Look, we're going to build something that runs for a really long time, and there's going to be turbulence along the way. But I think there's always going to be more good than bad. And like you said, the people who are caught in the last 3 days, not the 14 days prior, are the ones who are maybe in a little bit of a bad spot. But those kind of the 14 to 15 day kind of previous early adopters, have done well. And when I say early adopter, by the way, the people who came on in December, January, February, March, we did all kinds of promotions, all kinds of giveaways. The pack sales are really cheap. Like there's all these things that we've done to make sure that people have kind of opted in and had their early support we wanted to reward. And it's so funny. There's these paper hands people that came in and bought the packs for $350 and sold them for $500. And like, haha, I really got over on everybody. I made, I made $150 on a $350 investment. Look at me. Meanwhile, those packs, 3 weeks later, selling for $8,000.
Yeah, but anyway, profit is a profit. So I guess that those people should be happy either way.
Right. But I think people always think that they're so smart and they always know what's going to happen. And they're always trying to get over on you. It's like, you know what, dude, that's the goal isn't to try to get over on somebody. Like that's not a good place to be.
No, but okay.
I appreciate it exists. The mentality exists.
Yeah, we have a person that joins. How long, like, if in your dream world, how long would it take for them to progress into the next brawler level, or the next? Perhaps the first step is, I don't know. Is the first step to get a better ring so you can have multiple of the first one, or is the first step to get a better brawler in your idea?
Well, in terms of steps, I mean, if you look at optimization, right? So the best ring in the world is the legendary ring by far. It's also the most expensive ring to craft, but that is the best ring.
Yeah, so best return of investment.
If you're talking about optimized path, I would say the optimized path is Scotty into a common ring, sell as much gold as you can at the highest price that you can. And trust me, we are trying to make sure that inventory levels are under control to the extent that we can observe them and we can influence that. Which we typically can't because we don't actually list what the prices are, but we do look at supply and demand, make sure that there's parity. I would say Scotty into a common ring and then try to get to a berry in a common ring. And then once you have berry into a common ring, try to get berry into a rare ring and then try to get a second berry. And then eventually you're 4 berries into a rare ring and then you've got that on repeat. And you're cranking out gold at 4x berries. That's pretty good. I could probably let you get to a legendary ring. And somewhere I have a model that shows every single day when these things happen. I don't have it in front of me though, but we have looked at that scenario and we think it takes time, but this is not a 2-month make your money back, like let's all, get rich quick scheme. This is like, just play the game, have fun, engage with the community. The community is amazing. The community is just absolutely incredible. There's some of the most thoughtful, conscientious, smart gamers in the space that they want to talk about Funko. They want to talk about, not just brawlers. Like they'll talk about just about anything in the Wax blockchain. It's a great place to be. And
yes, for people, you earn like, I think it is 20% more on a legendary ring from a Scotty per round of brawl tokens. The same on gold, but same on gold on all rings. But the brawl token is more net profit.
The depreciation on the legendary ring is less because the cost to build it is less.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to maximize, the better ring you have, the more of the brawl you will get to keep. Calculating that you will need new rings and all of these things.
Right.
So we have a bunch of questions and we have answered a few of them. And I didn't mention who asked it there. So Putang, I don't know how I should pronounce his name. He like, if we take what Alienware did, they added all their tokens into a pool, and then they have this daily allocation of the assets instead of having they have a pool that is the max per day and everything. Why did you not go with a pool like that and shows the distribution model you have?
Yeah, look, candidly and full disclosure, we're not DeFi experts. And so what is the optimized kind of block emissions and tokenomics is not something that we really try to optimize around. What we try to do is create an experience where people could come in and earn a currency and build NFTs that had value as they go towards like the real, like I will tell you, if you want a amazing DeFi experience, it's not this game. It's not our sole focus. Our sole focus is building a really fun to play product, right? And Alien Worlds is great at DeFi. DeFi mining is great at DeFi. There's so many great DeFi things. If that's your jam, you probably shouldn't come to us. Is there a better way to do this? I'm sure there is.
There are always better ways to do things.
Of course, right? And look, we have no pride in authorship, right? If somebody gives us a better mousetrap, we will use it. It's not been a super focus for ours because we've sort of tried to move away from being labeled as the gamification of decentralized finance. So yeah, look, it's copy and cloning is common, but I don't know that trying to be a better Alien World is our aspiration.
I don't think that was the question, but I think you answered the question in your response. I think it was good.
Yeah, they sort of said, look, there's this pool, and you earn a certain percentage, and over time it goes down, so you're earning less. So you're controlling your inflation of the token, and that is very much a decentralized kind of thing, and they do it very well.
Yeah, they have a tokenomic model which is distributed by the mining. So how? Doug Butner is asking, how is the blockchain brawlers innovating play to earn wax space? And he has examples like gameplay, economy, art, or etc. In what way are you innovating the play to earn space on wax, I guess, in your words?
It's a really good question. I shudder to say that we are innovating. What I will tell you is what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to raise the bar on best practices tied to usability. So if you look at kind of
the user experience is what you're innovating on.
Yeah, well, it's not really innovating. We're actually taking accepted kind of best practices from the traditional gaming world, and we're bringing them into play to earn, which were non-existent. Look, I didn't play every play to earn game in the world, but I played 6 or 8 of them to know that, wow, there's no consideration for this, or this. How does anybody know what to do, where to go, how to do it, where to buy, where to spend, how to sell, how to do, all that stuff was just kind of opaque to me. And if you stuck something out long enough, you could figure out through Discord and AMAs and going to the help channel, like all these terrible things that you needed to do to learn just how to equip something to use it, right? And we said that's a non-starter. If you look at the Waxfeld wall, we got almost 13 million users because it's so easy to use and it's so easy to adopt and to kind of go through the off flow. Like we took that same kind of thinking into this Web 2 experience, if you will, in blockchain brawlers. So it's like, I want to sell something. Where do I go? Well, there's a big button that says exchange. It's like, well, how do I get to exchange? There's a giant button that says Alcor. Like, oh, I click this. Oh, and then we take you right to Alcor. And we're like, oh, okay, I want to buy something. Click here. It takes you to Atomic Hub. And they're like, oh, wow. Like contextualized information and kind of hand-holding through interfaces. Nobody ever gets lost on where to go or what to do. Now, there's still a couple of gaps that we're plugging, but we really wanted to make this a super usable experience that looked good, that sounded good. Again, we have a soundtrack for our game. We're about to add a music player in a couple of weeks where you can shuffle and pause and rewind and change the volume versus the sound effects versus the music. We're going to add 24 more tracks from Yoshi drops that are really cool. Like just like touches like that like show you that we care about what the user journey is all about. Like, I don't know that I call that innovation. I just call that, really, kind of high production value. Right? Let's be clear. I'm not innovating anything. I'm just doing what I've done my entire career.
I have a question here, which I think you are aware of what happened. So when did Scotty learn the mirror image ability? Learn the mirror image ability. I don't know if you saw the clip I posted when I added my Scotty to my rare ring, and suddenly in the inventory was 2 Scotty, then 4, then 6, then 8, then 12 Scotties. Because it duplicated.
I did not see that. It
was a fun thing. There is a mirror image is a spell in the Warcraft world, and I thought it was fun. It was a loop in the background of the website that made it happen, and I'm pretty sure it's fixed already.
I'm sure it is too.
But it was a fun thing to see. They all cloned.
I do understand mirror image stuff. I played enough WoW in my day and Clash Royale and mirror matches and fighting games and all that fun stuff. So
I will send it to you after, and you
you
can watch it. But it was pretty fun. So you did not design that ability; it just happened that either way.
It was an artifact of some code somewhere that we didn't design that. It was not intentional.
Yeah. Metaverse Arcade, he just want to express his gratitude towards the team and the transparency, and said keep up the great work.
Thank you, Meta. We're a big fan of him and what he does as well. He's a great community member. There's no doubt about it.
And there was a few questions on uncertainty and things, and you answer all of that already. And short term, what are you most excited about now? It's 3 weeks since the game launched, pretty much. So right now, what's most exciting for you?
That we're still here.
That was from Waxtronaut, by the way. He's in the blockchain brawler room.
Yeah, Waxtronaut is also great. We love him. He's active on Telegram and Discord. And look, we're building real, meaningful relationships with our community, right? Which is, I think, that matters more than people realize. Like, we care about them. We have empathy for them. Hopefully, they care about us. They don't have to, but it'd be nice if there's this commitment. Like we really do feel a kinship to what they're doing, because we're all going through this together. And I think the thing that I'm kind of most excited about is we have been able to deliver on everything that we've said when we've said, right? Credibility matters. Like, we put out a calendar, and so what we're going to tell you on these days, and we tell them on that day. We're going to launch the product on this minute. We launch the product on that minute. It's going to perform really well. You're not going to get lost. It performed well. People are like, I can't believe it works. Like, just like you said. Now we're saying, look, we're going to head into the next 1 year of the roadmap. It's really aggressive. It's super aggressive. We're going to do some things that we think are really interesting along the way. And, we're going to do everything we can to hit those deliverables, including, like I said, these asynchronous ladder competitions, which I think are coming in May or June. We've got Rent a Brawler, which is probably coming in May. We hope it's coming in May. It may come in June, but I hope it comes in May, because that's a nice onboarding for new players. Like, there's all these things that are, again, laddering up towards, okay, now that PvP is live, you've got your roster, you've got your tools, you've got your strategy, you've got your dudes that you love. We're gonna launch. We're gonna talk about factions at the end of this month. People are like, well, what are factions? They're exactly what you think they are. Stables or guilds of people that you now can do things together with. Like, you'll have collective faction-based goals. We'll reward and recognize and rank all the factions in the world that people will, again, continue to lean in community. The factions probably doesn't roll out until June, but we're going to talk about it from a design and aspiration standpoint. The end of this month, I'm going to write a blog post about it. We think those are really cool. We know people want to game together. We're going to allow that to happen. We're going to incentivize that. We're going to reward that. Like, there's all these cool things that are coming. Just keep the faith, dude. We will get there. I promise you that.
That is good, and you answered more questions there than that. So
let's keep going. Let's go into overtime. Let's just roll with it.
Patang had a good question.
Do another
also.
hour.
So, how many features do you think is needed until the game reach equilibrium?
Equilibrium in terms of brawl output input, gold output input, like what?
Exactly.
So people, I guess, are asking sort of additional tuning changes. Look, I understand, I guess, the ask, right? And I would say that I'm still kind of, like I said earlier, 7 to 10 days from really understanding performance of gold, performance of kind of brawl, and kind of, again, keep in mind, we're super, super focused on the stabilization of the token. We've seen some maybe, malicious trading activities that we're not really happy with, that people, we think, potentially are trying to price manipulate, but you fight that by having, being listed on big exchanges like KuCoin, which is massive. So that arrests that problem. Like, there's all these things that are in flight that are addressing the problems that we see. Whether we know that they're effective or not, whether we know they're going to be future changes, is probably still, like I said, kind of 7, 10, 14 days away. But the trend lines are really good, right? And one of the ways that, we don't always want to make adjustments to the supply and demand tension, the equilibrium, through data changes. Like, we'd like to create additional utility. And that's the thing that I think that you'll see in May, that, these competitions that we run, they'll be with an eye towards increased utility. Like, oh, I get it. This is why I generate brawl, and this is why I have this lineup, and this is why I need gold, or this is where I use it, or this is the point of it. And like, really, really cool things like that are happening. That, again, additional kind of aggressive means of utilization opposed to just data changes. Like, that's where we want to get to. And the reason we made the data change this time around, as I've said in many places, is that the programmatic changes take time. And like this was an immediate, like, we need to remove this cancerous kind of tumor, if you will. And then we can work on putting, programmatic changes in place that we maybe then shift the earning potential and power and appeal of Scotty back. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that we're going to put it back to what it was. I'm saying, we want to get in a position where that is actually the paradigm. Like Scotty performs the way he used to, and maybe the upper end of the market performs better. You have to be careful a little bit with inflation against a hard cap, but that is another way that it could have been handled. But we thought, let's fix the problem first. Let's change the behavior, and then while we do that in parallel, let's figure out how to build, sort of systemic improvements that, and there's a bunch of different ways to do that we're contemplating, that we're kind of acting upon. A great question.
And great answer. Yeah, I think you have provided a lot of great answers, and I think that has at least calmed down the chat. Either they are not here anymore, or they are all calm and happy now, or they stopped complaining. I don't know. In the start, there was a few people that got muted by Nick, so thank you, Nick, for doing that. Yeah, people were
Nick Custers.
Yeah, exactly, Nick Custers.
Oh, Nick Custers is great. If you guys haven't gone to Nick's site, I encourage you to do so. He's got a donation button that you should absolutely use. I'm a big fan of shareware. I'm a big fan of community-based initiatives, but his tools, his calculation tools, are invaluable to the players, and I'm really, really glad that he built them. I'm a big fan of what he does and what he's all about. I appreciate his work. So you guys should go and support him any chance you get.
And they see it right now over my face. It's I will link it in chat as well if Nick hasn't done it already.
That's great. It's great. Nick's a terrific guy, and that tool is really, really helpful. So you guys should all support him. I would appreciate it.
Yeah, he does. So he keeps adding things that is awesome. So we have gone through a lot of topics. We have discussed things that are positive. I think everything is positive, to be honest. It is just sharing perspectives that is important, and that has been done in a great way. So
we've sort of always tried to manage expectations, but out of the other side of our mouth, we've asked people to give us the benefit of the doubt and know that we don't do things just to be douchey, right? We do things because we have everybody's best interest in mind, and we really do take an infinite perspective, not a 2-month perspective. And so if we did, we could have let it run for 60 days. People would have all made a ton of money, and then it would have collapsed. And they're like, you're no different than anybody else. By making this change, we're actually saying we're different than anybody else. And we've always said, we think different, we act different, we are different. We have this very long-term perspective, and we don't care if you hate us and you're mad. Again, we take a very long lens kind of perspective to this project.
That is awesome. Is there anything that we haven't discussed yet that you want to get out? I think we have talked about the majority of announcements and everything.
I think I've hit all the notes. I believe I have. I look, and by the way, thank you for having me on. Like, I didn't even think, in my learning, right? I'm like, okay, next time we do this, make sure I have an appearance booked, to make sure that I have a platform to kind of broadcast widely. It scales much better than me on Discord saying, hang on, I'll be right there. Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Text do not communicate well for these things because there are too much people read between the words, the lines, and especially if people are not English first.
Right. I get a lot of weird translation errors, and I feel so. I don't know how to. I always I'm so sorry. I have no idea what you're asking me, but I know you want a question answered. And so then the community all jumps in. I think he means this. I think she means that. Like, well, which is it? Because those are different. And the person through Google Translate is trying to get it out differently. And it's just this whole to do. It's charming and frustrating for them, I'm sure. But we try to make sure that we get everybody kind of tucked in on the situations that they want to get, answers to.
They're asking about in-game tournament and factions and things like that, but we already talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, they're going to be awesome.
And hopefully June is when we can start to see things.
Yeah, I think so. I really do believe we'll get our first tournament, our first global competition out in May. I think Rent a Brawler, which is targeted for May. Rent a Brawler is a very complicated thing. It's unbelievably complicated. In terms of what is the feature, how does it work? do they have to have a ring? Do they not have a ring? How can this not get botted? Like, there's just all this complexity that goes into it. It's very involved. We think it's really good for the players. We know that they can't brawl 24/7, but we want to give them the ability to earn the currency 24/7. So creating that system in a right way that has incredible kind of, incredible, easy to use kind of interfaces is important to us. And so if it's not done in May, it's because it wasn't up to our exacting standards in terms of usability. It wasn't like, it's not important to us. It's actually very, very important to us. So, but we'll get there, and we'll communicate where we're at every step of the way. And hopefully, people will feel like we're present and we have, kind of their thoughts in mind, and we're communicating where things are at.
Awesome. I'm grateful for you coming on and sharing this and letting everyone know the perspective and the ins and outs of the team. So really thank you, and thanks everyone for watching. And this video will be up on YouTube, so share it, watch it again, get all the details in the start if you came late. That's it.
Thanks for having me.
Peace. Over and out.
You're listening to Anyobservation, the best NFT, crypto, and gaming podcast ever. With your host, Anders Bjork.